Hello, everybody, and welcome to this very special edition of News You Can Use. This will be the last cable TV show that I'm going to be doing here at LaSalle TV, and I just have to tell you again and again how much I thank LaSalle University for affording this opportunity to me, and in particular, Professor Tanya Ellis. She opened the door for me. Reverend Todd Johnson first brought me to this studio as a guest on his program, Bridging the Gap, and the next thing I knew, after asking the question, I got an answer: yes, you can come on board. Coming on board did not, in my mind, resonate into being around for 7.5 years almost, but that's actually what has happened. It's been a blessing, it's been an opportunity, and I can never thank Professor Tanya Ellis enough. I can never thank LaSalle University enough for giving this opportunity to someone like me from the community, because that's what it's about. If you look at these channels where you see programming from LaSalle TV, largely it is the students of LaSalle University who are studying broadcast communications or journalism who host the shows, who do the programs, who make the fun and the laughter, and who also share the information and the education. Yes, you will see some of the professors of LaSalle University who come before these cameras, and they do programs as well. And then you have those community slots. There's about 3 or 4 of them, I think, for people like me who come in and do a show. But to be around for 7 years or 7.5 years, who the heck do I think I am, right? It's time. It is time to allow someone else from the community to have the opportunity that I've enjoyed for these last number of years, and I just thank you again and again. On this last show, I decided that I wanted to do something that was more on the educational side and a very serious subject indeed, rather than what I initially thought I would do, which was to bring in jazz artists and singers, and we were just going to dance our way through an hour. Being hopeful that Tanya Ellis would allow me to have an hour special to close out my seasons of being with LaSalle TV. But ultimately, my heart said, no, you need to talk about rape, incest, and violence, and being a victim no more. And I couldn't do this show on my own. In fact, I definitely couldn't do it at all unless I had a lady sitting by my side. She's my friend. She's my sister. I'm talking about Joan Pendergrass, and I thank Bob Lott. I thank God for putting you in my life, my sister, my sister. Thank you for coming me. All the way from Boston. Are you crazy, lady?
No, I'm not. I just want to share with others and help others.
All right, so you and your daughter, Jessica Avila, who will be with us 2 segments from now. We'll have her in the studio with us as well. But right now, let's get to the subject, and this is serious. I talked to myself before doing the show. I've been talking to myself for the last few weeks. Thera, you're going to be cool, you're going to be smooth, and you're not going to cry. So I'm going to do my best to get there. But
me too.
This is a heavy subject, a serious subject. Domestic violence, rape, incest, subjects that are often taboo, but things that have been happening since the beginning of time. And I'm saying, you're saying, be silent no more.
Absolutely.
You got to talk about it, you have to face it, and you have to understand that if you are a victim of domestic violence, rape, or incest, it wasn't your fault. And you don't have to have your head down and be ashamed. When you talk about it, it's a part of the healing process, and Joan is going to help heal the world.
Absolutely.
Yes, you are. You have
my pleasure.
Touching story, a hurtful story, but you are an amazing woman of God. At the end of the day, how you have risen up above the angst, the hurt, and the pain to become somebody who's a messenger and who is a victim no more.
Thank you so much.
I know we don't have enough time to really tell all that we want to tell. That's why people got to get the documentary. We'll get to that. But right now, just share with our viewing audience a little bit about the Joan Pendergrass story.
Well, Joan Pendergrass is a mother, a businesswoman, and a woman who has a lot of love deep inside her soul. And Joan Pendergrass wants to share her story with the world, not to feel sorry for me or not to feel sorry for yourself, but to help you understand that you can overcome any type of adversities, whether it's abandonment, because that was the first abuse that I went through, abandonment, molestation, domestic violence, incest, or witness your family member being molested, that you can overcome. So I am basically geared to helping people with my story. Again, I want no one to feel sorry for me, but to take my story and take where I have walked through my journey and how I have overcame all of those adversity and look at me and said, well, I can do this too. You know, so that's what I'm about.
It's crazy. When I was a little girl, I was often teased in school because they said I was the darkest one in the classroom. And so they would call me Blackie. I remember in first and second grade when they would show little movies and stuff and they turn out the lights in the classroom, the kids would point at me, ha 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 ha, all we can see on Thera are her teeth and her eyeballs. And so I went through this thing for years about being dark complexion, and maybe that's not a good thing as a little child, because that's what was being fed to me. Even my biological grandmother on my father's side, who was about your complexion with long silky hair and gray eyes, she never gave me the same amount of love or attention that she gave my other three cousins, well, two cousins and my sister, who were about your complexion as well. And so there was this color thing that made me feel like there was something wrong with me as a little girl. And you,
it's
on
the
other
opposite.
hand, was
What's
the
opposite? So my mom, it's 9 of us, and I stood out. And before she gave me up, it was 4 of us. And the 4, I stood out. And I was treated different. When I was with my mom, I was treated like really well by my mom, because those days, I remember my first 5 years was beautiful. Even my mom was poor, but we were together. And my mom was a mom. But once she decided to give me up because the man she had met after my birth didn't want me because of the color of my skin.
Because you were too light.
I was too light.
And everybody else in the household was
dark,
chocolate.
right. And so I was given up at the age of 5, you know, the last of the 4. And that was pretty hurtful. And I went through so many years into my 30s wondering, but why, how could you do that? And I went through so much growing up as a light-skinned child that I used to say to God, why did you make me pretty? Because everybody would call me, oh, the pretty little girl with the long hair, the 2 plaits or the 3 plaits. And they would pull my hair and tease me for being light. And I used to say to God, why did you make me light? Why did you make me different, you know? And so it was kind of sweet sometimes, and sometimes it was really bad, because at the time I would call it that young men and men preyed on this young girl, you know, I gotta have this, you know. And so,
now, what we didn't say is that you're from the islands. You're from the island of
Dominica, yes.
And so that's another part of the setting, a beautiful tropical island, beautiful people, and you're in this pressure cooker now because your mom has met a gentleman whom she chose to bring into her home and to marry, and he just had this thing where everybody's got to be chocolate or you can't be in this household. Absolutely. So your mom decided to give you to a family member to raise?
A very distant, very, very distant family member. But someone she knew in the community.
And so at the age
she
of
had no children.
5 or 6, you were molested or raped for the first time.
Molested before 9. But I said I wasn't going to cry, and I'm not going to cry.
Okay.
Before the age of 9, I had been molested about 3 times. Raped, I would call it raped, because when someone pushes you against the wall, and do what they do with you, and you're fighting back, that's rape. And I was not even 9 years old. You know, I just went to bring this young man food, and he pinned me against the wall and molested me. And so the woman that I lived with, she was an aristocrat woman, so she had people in and out of her house, and she would often like help neighbors, and you know, people in and out of the house, and things happened. And it was very sad, because I remember one day when my mom stopped by to comb my hair, because this woman had no children and she couldn't comb her hair. She couldn't comb hair, and she stopped in to comb my hair. And I remember that day, I was in pain. I was in pain, and I was crying, "Mom, Mom, I'm in pain there," and she did not even look or check to see or ask me, or probably, I don't know if she didn't want to know, or if, I really don't know, because we never talked too much about that, although I asked a lot of questions older in life, but I never got any answer But that day I was crying out for help. And from that day I learned to zip. It makes no sense to cry out for help, just suck it up. And so I did that for many years.
Then I recall as we talked some more about your story, and I've had the wonderful opportunity to work on the Joan Pendergrass documentary. You're going to meet Bob Lott in the next segment of the program, and he's the executive producer and the brain person behind making all of this happen in a spectacular way to tell the story. It's not about showbiz and we want to show off. This is serious.
Absolutely.
It's a serious discussion, and so many people have been through it, but never, it's like you said, zip your lips. Don't talk about it. Don't talk about it. Sweep it under the rug. Act like everything is normal in your house when it's not.
It's not. And I think one of the biggest things is growing up in the islands, everybody knows everybody. And the stigma of you being with someone, it's a big deal. Whether you chose to or not. If a young girl got pregnant, forget it. You're trash. And so you had to keep those things private because you felt that, I felt that I did something to deserve. I felt that I was nothing. I felt alone and there was no one to talk to. Who was going to save you? So why even talk about it? But I knew one day I was going to be able to talk about it. I knew. I knew deep inside of me, because even as the sad little girl sitting on the steps looking at people walk by, I remember saying, one day I am going to be. One day God is going to put me into a position that I can help somebody else and explain to them that they don't have to be ashamed anymore. They don't have to be afraid, because nothing, they didn't do anything. It was done to them. And so therefore, you know, through this transition, I had to learn. And again, I want to say in the past, maybe 6 to 10 years, I've really started to reclaim my life. But I didn't really understand my purpose until my husband's passing, because I didn't understand why God had made me go through all of these things to give me this man and to take him away from me so soon.
Hold that thought for a second. I don't know why I didn't think of this, but I'm going to need some tissues up here. So any one of our audience members, if you have some tissues, some toilet paper, some rags, anything, we're going to need them. And it doesn't matter if you are seen on camera on the set, that's all right. We're going to keep it going because that's how we do this show. But we're going to jump around a little bit, folks. We're going to get the story told. Teddy Pendergrass.
Yes.
Philadelphia International Records, Philadelphia's own. We claim him, we love him. We're so proud of the successes that God gave him over the years. Teddy Pendergrass was your husband up until his death, and he was a wonderful man, the love of your life.
Yes.
And to be very clear, don't get this twisted. He was not an abuser to Joan Pendergrass.
Absolutely not.
But I want people to take the connection with that name, Pendergrass. Come on, Bob, we appreciate you so much. And he'll be back on the next segment anyway. We're going to torture him when he gets up here, in case you need one. But so Teddy Pendergrass was the man who really, when you all came into each other's lives, that was the game changer.
Yes. I had told my story before, but I still felt at that time when I told my story to even my first husband, because he was the abuser in the domestic violence, I still felt that I was judged. I still felt that I was looked at as being not the perfect woman that he wanted. So I did tell my story, but when I met Teddy, and in a conversation, a weekend, I came to see him, and he said, you know, honey, I love you, but I have to ask you this question. And I said, ask me any question you want. And he said, I have to ask you, you're such a beautiful person. And I'm not saying beautiful from the outside, but I'm saying beautiful from the inside. And you've been married twice. What was the breakdown of the marriage? And I said to him, do you really want me to tell you? And he said, yes, I do. And he, you know, I was a little hesitant because I hadn't known him well enough. We were dating and we were all of that, but I hadn't known him well enough and I wasn't prepared for that.
Yes.
So he kind of caught me off guard. And he said, it's okay, honey, regardless of, I'm gonna love you. And then I started to tell him why, what happened, why I divorced. And he sat back in his chair and he looked at me with this look and he said, who am I to judge you? Who am I to judge you? That was an aha moment for me. Who am I to judge you? And he said, I'll tell you what, you are not to be ashamed of anything that happened to you in your past.
Because you didn't ask for it.
It was done to you. So you need not to be ashamed. And you need to talk about it whenever you want to. Don't let anyone keep you silent. Remember those words. Don't ever let anyone keep you silent. And you know, I felt free. I fell in love with him even more because it's like, wow, you know, he says, I got the girl with the skinny legs. Now I got the girl with this problem, but guess what? It's not a problem because she didn't do anything wrong. So I felt he received me with open arms. It was unconditional. And I looked at him the same way. It was unconditional, you know. And when he sat back in his chair and he looked at his chair and he said, who am I to judge you? And then when he died, again, I was so angry. I was angry with God. I had made peace with my mom. I loved my sister.
Got this wonderful man.
And you know, they're all dying around me. And in 2015, a day before my birthday, I received this long letter from my ex-husband, my abuser, who was my abuser, telling me what he wished for me for by my 60th birthday. And I'm so happy to say everything that he wished for me is coming full circle, 360. It's coming full circle.
It's another amazing part of your story. A man whom you loved, who you married, Tomas Avila, and then things changed and the violent side of him came out and you went through this abuse with him for some years. 11 years. And but you loved this man and you went through all of that hell and then you all went your separate ways, but a few years later, and you became friends.
Yes, we had to.
And you raised a beautiful daughter together who will be on this set in a little bit, Jessica. But it's just amazing how God is and how God turned your ex-husband around, Tomas, and made him see his wrong way and made him a determined man to do better in helping you to raise your daughter. And you all became friends.
And it's supporting me to speak up against domestic violence.
Yes, that's what I'm talking about.
And it's an amazing, amazing friendship. And I want to step back a little bit about the first thing he said on line number 1 was, by your 60th birthday, I want to see you put Joan first, Joan second, and Joan
That's
third.
So hard to do. We don't know how to put
and
ourselves
to
first.
forgive yourself and to love yourself. Because now you had your husband and you loved him so much and God has taken him away from you. What you're looking for is looking at you right in your mirror. Love yourself first. Stop giving so much of yourself. And you know, all of those words, he just went on, and it really kind of, you know, kind of flipped the switch inside of me and said, you know, you're looking for love from a father you don't know. You're looking for love from your mother, your sister, acceptance from your brothers and sisters. They'll never accept you. They'll accept you halfway, but not all the way. And so you need to learn to find it within yourself and love yourself. And so, you know, I'm on the journey. I'm almost there. Once you have life and you're living, you'll always walk through that journey. So it's a process that you have to go through. but it's something that I'm willing to walk through and walk with other people through this journey.
Joan Pendergrass, she's my guest in the studio right now. We are blessed to have an hour show to close out my seasons with LaSalle TV, and I chose this last show to be a serious subject, to hopefully help someone else who may be watching the program right now, or someone who knows someone who's watching the program right now, and they're getting their behind kicked and beat 3-4 times a day, every day. They're being disparaged. They're being told you're nothing. They're being told that nobody else will love you. It's domestic violence. It's rape sometimes. It's incest sometimes. We're talking about all of that today as we go forward. In our next segment, the executive producer of Joan Pendergrass Story, A Victim No More, he will be on the set with us. Mr. Bob Lott, stay with us.
Wake each morning and get lost in the adventure, knowing that you will be ready for wherever the day takes you. Learn from those willing to teach. Their wisdom and their strength will become yours. They will impart to you a tradition of education nationally recognized for its value. A tradition worthy of your best efforts. As young men and women of LaSalle, we will invest in you the guidance to blaze your own path. To go forth into the unknown with new certainty. To realize your full potential as professionals, as leaders, as citizens. To take up your place as the accountants, speech therapists, journalists, and CEOs of your generation. To impact this city and the world beyond. These adventures are yours, and you are ready for them. Explorers are never lost.
We continue now with our program, News You Can Use. I'm your host, Thera Martin, and we're talking about domestic violence and rape and incest today. This is the very last program that I'm going to be doing for LaSalle TV that I know of anyway, and I want to thank them for 7.5 great seasons and just for the opportunity to open that door, to let me come in and to do some cable TV. Yes, I've been doing radio broadcasting for almost 40 years. Oh my God, I'm dating myself. And I've loved every minute of it. But certainly LaSalle TV has been my home for cable television for the last, like I said, 7.5 years now, and I appreciate it so very much. On this last program, talking about this heavy, heavy subject because I wanted to be a part of what Joan Pendergrass is doing to change people's mindsets, particularly people who are so-called victims. We want you to take that take that label off of yourself. Victim no more. Call yourself a survivor. That's what you are. That's what you want to be. But for those who are living in it, you're in a domestic violence situation right now where somebody is going to come home tonight and beat your behind just because maybe you served dinner 2 seconds late, or because they didn't like the fact that you had the nerve to put some makeup on today, or whatever the dumb behind reasons are. We want you to know that you can get out of it. So Bob Lott joins us right now. Welcome to the show, sir.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
No, you're not. But Bob Lott is well known throughout the Delaware Valley and really across the nation for making things happen in terms of television broadcasting and special kinds of shows. You have been in front of the camera yourself years ago. He said he really didn't like that. He wanted to make other people stars, and I respect you for doing that as well. But I also want to say that this man is a genius in his own right. We can drive all across the country and he can point out buildings that he built or that he helped to build as a professional architect first. Now, we're not here to talk about that today, but I had to put that in there. We're not just spotlighting somebody who's a fly-by-night, oh, he picked up a camera and decided he wanted to do documentaries. Bob Lott has been doing documentaries for like 40 years or more now.
35.
35 years and doing them so very well. And you are partially responsible for getting Joan here today, and definitely responsible for saying, you've got a story to tell, and I'm going to be the one to help you tell it.
Well, the interesting thing about Teddy and Joan, I've known Teddy since about a year after his accident. Actually, in 1979, before I even met him, we taped him at the Resorts International down in Atlantic City. But Teddy was an interesting person, as you all very well know. But when he met Joan and he introduced me to her, he was a very different person. She had some kind of a spirit about her that changed him tremendously so. And I always wanted to know what was the connection between these two people. Based on Teddy's condition and this gorgeous woman, what was that connection? Because the love between the two of them was so significant. And I just didn't know. But when Teddy passed, Joan and I got to know each other just a little bit better. And how I learned about her past was I came up to Boston to do an interview with a very significant person, Professor Charles Ogletree from Harvard. And Joan asked me to stay there at her house. And then she wanted to meet Professor Ogletree. So I took her to the interview that I did with Professor Ogletree. And the interesting thing about it, as we left that interview, she said to me, Bob, you got to do my story. And I said, yeah, okay. I said, yeah, okay. Story about you and Teddy. Oh, no, not about me and Teddy, about me. And we got to her house, and by the way, she's one of the greatest cooks I've ever want to know.
I need some plantains.
That's easy.
As she was fixing dinner for me and my, Walt Gavin was with me, as she was fixing dinner from the refrigerator to the sink, to the stove, and to the oven, she was telling me this story about her life from birth. And as a result of that, I'm sitting there with my mouth all wide open like, I can't believe this. And consequently, I made the decision to come back 2 weeks later. And we did an interview with her, 3 hours on a Saturday, 3 hours on a Sunday, 6 hours, and guess what? Based on her life story, I could do 12 hours. So that's how we got together, and I knew then that we had to share this story with people who had the same kind of atrocities that she did.
Yes.
Sexual abuse, domestic abuse, abandonment, all of those things. I said rejection. So we have to share this with younger people so they know that they can get out of this. They can get past this, because Joan, she came past all of this. She became an executive in an organization.
New Balance.
New Balance in Boston. Then she meets Teddy, which changed her life a little bit. And
just a little bit.
Just a little bit. And I just can't believe that this woman has lived all she lived, and then has done what she has done.
Came out stronger
and now
and better than ever.
Wants to share her story with young people so that they can find a way to overcome as well.
And it's still not easy to tell, because look at us, we were both getting teary-eyed in the first segment. I think we got a little more strength since Bob has joined us on set. And even for me, coming from a family where there was domestic violence, where my father used to beat my mother, and I've wanted to talk about it forever and never felt like I could, because my mom was still here. My mom passed away last November of 2017, and so now I feel a little more comfortable talking about it, but then not really, because there's still family members who would be shocked, don't know that, yeah, your papa, your grandfather, the one that we've talked about like the war hero that he was, but also a person who would come home at night and was a different person, particularly when he drank, and he drank a lot every day. But yeah, I know about domestic violence and seeing my mother get beat. And I think about Allen Iverson years ago when he had bad behavior. He's doing a lot better now, praise God. But years ago when he and his wife were going through some troubling times and he set her naked outside on the front lawn. Well, my dad did that to my mom before you, AI. I know about that kind of stuff. And I remember being a child of 6 and 7 and trembling and sometimes, yes, wetting myself because my sister and I would hold on to each other for dear life while our parents were downstairs and my father was getting the best of my mom because he was stronger than her. And so it's tough, and it's tough to talk about, and also because it was always, shh, you don't talk about it. But until you talk about it, you're not free. You carry it with you, and sometimes it will make you choose relationships that are not good relationships. I thank God I've never been beat by a man myself, but somehow or another, the chains were still on me just from watching what my mother went through. A neighbor across the street in West Philadelphia, her husband used to regularly beat her. The whole neighborhood knew about this stuff, but you're still supposed to be shh, even though everybody knows, you know. It's tough.
It is, in families, it's so difficult, but I'm gonna say this. In my family, my siblings doesn't accept the fact of what happened to me. They don't know, they don't wanna know what happened to me because it didn't happen to them. They had a mother and a father raising them. They knew who their father was. I didn't. I didn't. So it's still taboo to them. It's like me talking about this is like betraying the family or betraying, or, you know, because it's not them. It's not them. So I understand exactly what you're saying. And that's not going to stop me, because if they're meant to be in my life, they will be in my life.
Yes.
And if they're meant not to be in my life, then they're not going to be in my life. Thank God to my daughter, Jessica. The older one, you know, she's a little more softy, but this one, she'll say to me, Mommy, it doesn't really matter. If they don't love you, they will never love you. So it's all about you. It's not about them. It's all about your healing, not about their healing. They have their own thing to heal about, but this is your healing. So you talk about whatever you want to talk about, and don't be ashamed and don't be afraid. You're a victim no more, and spread the word that you and other people can be a victim no more.
Now, you were a marvelous guest speaker not so long ago, this past spring, here in the Germantown section of Philadelphia, LaSalle University, based in the Germantown section of Philadelphia, and you spoke at a little church that was observing domestic violence awareness information, and we had a wonderful gathering of women, and you were a great speaker on that day. If people get this film, not if, people are going to get this film, the Joan Pendergrass Story, Victim No More. And once Bob Lott finishes with the production, and we're looking for support for people to help us get that production finished. Can you talk about that part of it a little bit, Bob?
Well, we're going to do the project, fund it or not, because it's worthwhile. It has to go out there to protect and save our young people. We are looking for people to help us to fund it, but we're going to fund it one way or the other.
One way or the other.
But it's going to make it easier and faster for us to get the project done and out to the public if we have some people who can help us funding it. So yes, we've got an Indiegogo site.
Indiegogo?
Yes.
Okay.
Indiegogo site that if anybody wants to help us with this film, just go to Indiegogo.com and then search Victim No More. Joan's entire story is on that site, and all the details about the film are there as well. So if we would like people to not only just give the money, but they need to know Joan. And we're going to take that film when it's done, and we're going to take it to some of the organizations around the country. Joan's going to be following the film as well. It's going to be a screening and a panel discussion that will really give our young people a chance to understand that they can be a victim no more.
So even right now, if there was somebody viewing the program, and this show, while it's done in Philadelphia, and you can see it on Comcast and Verizon, channel 56 or channel 36, 56 on Comcast, 36 on Verizon. It's available on YouTube, which means it's international. So people go to YouTube and they can type in LaSalle TV and then look for Joan Pendergrass, Victim No More. It pops up, they can see it. This show to get more information about what else you're doing. You've got a book that's going to be coming out. I'm imagining a play before it's all over, television show, and so much more. Maybe you'll be hosting your own show, bringing on victims to talk about how you go from being a victim to an S, a survivor, and all of that kind of thing. So there's a lot of great things still to come.
One of the important things I also want to let young people know, and elder people as well, is how important it is to co-parent, how important it is for ex-partners or baby mama, daddy, whatever, to find a common ground, to come together for the good of their children, their grandchildren, their legacy, to help them to raise their child in a co-parenting way. It is just so important. And my ex-husband and I and his wife, we have such an incredible bond for the sake of our children. My daughter, who is not his, my grandchildren, that is not his biological grandchildren, the relationship he have with them. Last night I went to an event where she was being honored, and when they was reading as to how many grandchildren she had, all of the grandchildren was included. All of the children were included in her description of who she was. And I think it's an amazing thing that we need to teach young people and to teach people how important it is to co-parent together.
Absolutely.
Whether the parties
Absolutely.
are not together. It's very, very important. And it's not easy in the beginning, but you have to be determined to make it better for your child and for your children.
Now, while the documentary that we're working on is largely about you, the Joan Pendergrass story and all that you went through, I find it also very amazing and special that you did still open it up to invite other people who have been through domestic violence or incest or rape to tell some of their stories within the documentary. I thought that was special.
It is, I was amazed at how many people in my circles or people that I meet on a daily basis that have gone through several types of traumas, domestic violence, molestation, rape, control, so many. We are so broken as a society. This is a worldwide epidemic. It is so huge. It is bigger than crack cocaine, because all of those things are the road to people becoming addicts and all types of negative things.
Self-medicating
Those are
because
those
of the pain.
things that happen to them that they can't talk about, that they hold it in there. So I think it's so important for me to bring other people in to tell their story, and to encourage them to find ways to heal, to find ways.
I've got to give you 30 seconds, Bob, to give a wrap up on your thoughts before we move to our next segment.
Well, all I can say is that meeting Joan has been very special to me, and I want to share her story with everybody. Why? Because, as she just said, a lot of people have her story, have lived it, and therefore they don't necessarily know how to come past that. And we're going to teach them how she came past it and how you can come past it.
Put that S on your chest, survivor, and a victim no more.
Yes.
All righty, we're going to go into our last segment of this very special program, News You Can Use, in just a moment. Jessica Avila, one of the daughters of Joan Pendergrass, will be with us. And thank you, Bob, for being in this segment.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
All right.
According to statistics, 40 million adults suffer from depression or anxiety. 1 in 4 college students are affected by this as well. You never know who is going through something, so you should always be kind to one another. A little kindness can go a long way. It might even save a life.
Well, we're back with this last segment of our special for this edition, the last edition for News You Can Use at LaSalle TV. And I feel kind of weird to even smile because this is not a smiling subject, but I am smiling because I feel strong and I feel the strength of my sister sitting by my side and her daughter, who I'm gonna call her my niece now, and doing this program to share information about domestic violence and incest and rape. And initially, we had talked with Devin Allen, who does the public relations for Women Organized Against Rape, and we thought we were going to have Dr. Howard here, the executive director of Women Organized Against Rape, but she's out of town, missed her plane coming back into Philly, so she's not here. It's okay. We're not going to hold it against them. WAR, Women Organized Against Rape, they're doing wonderful work in the city of Philadelphia. They're doing amazing work, even without the kind of funding that they really deserve. The reality is that here in Philadelphia, when you think about where can women go who are trying to get out of a domestic violence situation, or they've been raped and their rapist is nearby and they're uncomfortable, they need shelter, they need somewhere else to go, incest, all of that. There's very few official places that women can go to in Philadelphia. We do have addresses for a couple of them, but we don't put the addresses out on the air for fear of their abuser coming back to try and hurt them some more. But we can certainly put out phone numbers where women can go for help, and put out the name of the organizations: Women Organized Against Rape, Women Against Abuse, Women in Transition. Those are the three most well-known organizations. In fact, the only three organizations in Philadelphia proper that address these issues: Women Organized Against Rape, Women Against Abuse, and Women in Transition. They all have 1-800 hotlines, and you can get them very easily. But right now, as we go to this last segment, Jessica Avila joins us on set, and you are something, superstar daughter who does great work uplifting your mom, uplifting yourself, and now, as you're sharing with me, in Boston, uplifting women of Boston who are coming into the hospitals who are victims of sexual abuse and things of that nature. So God is good, and the strength that He's given to you, the knowledge, the maturity, and the everything to do what you do and to be there for your mom so significantly. So welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
And thank you for coming all the way from Boston with your mom, getting on the plane and everything, just to be here for this program, and we appreciate your presence so very much. Tell us about how, when you first realized that there was a problem in your family house when you were a child.
When I first realized, well, the first memory that I have as a child, I just remember I was really young, so I don't have many memories, but the first memory that I recall was when I was young. I just remember, I have two older siblings, so I have an older brother and an older sister. I remember there was an altercation in the middle of the night between my parents. There was yelling, I heard my mom crying, I heard a big bang. In my parents' bedroom, we ran to the bedroom, and my mom, when I heard the bang, my mom's head was on the floor. And in the older homes, there was like heating grates in the ground. Yes. And long story short, obviously my dad had hit my mom. Her head hit the ground on the heating metal. Yeah, the grate on the floor. My siblings and I were crying. We were upset. And we just were like, call the police, get dad out. We were really upset. That's the only recollection that I have of physical abuse. Other than that, to my knowledge as a child, we had the picture perfect family. We had the parents who attended PTA, took us out, upper middle class family. we were really happy. We had everything and anything that we needed or wanted in the home. So besides that, I did not know what was going on, but as an adult, I also am aware that I really don't have any recollection of my childhood other than spots of memories.
Yes.
So to me, now in the profession that I am, I'm a licensed independent clinical social worker. That could also be a defense mechanism of trauma, because you hear
Yes,
things.
yes.
And my siblings were aware of what was going on in the home. But to the world, we were a perfect family. And typically that's what most families go through. Everything is hush and everything is silent. So as an adult, or as a teenager, when my parents got a divorce, is when I became more aware of what was really going on in our home.
And how, once you really realize that my mom's been through this and it was my dad, I mean, I love my dad. He was hitting my mom. How did you juggle through that?
It was difficult for me because I was daddy's little girl. I still am till this day. But it was a transition. I was about 8 years old when they separated. So I obviously stayed with my mother. My father went his separate way, but he was always involved. But it was definitely something that I had to sit with. But out of the children, the three of us, I was the more the go-getter, the more overt, like take control. I just have to do what I have to do. So I kind of just sucked it up, buttercup, and did what I had to do. So it wasn't until I kind of got older that I kind of sat back and reflected, but I just took care of Mom and did what I had to do, and I took care of my sister. And I was just always kind of bred from my mom's womb that I had to be strong, and I had to protect, and I had to care for, and at that time I was taught why. And I was taught because there was an abusive situation going on, and my mother was always protecting me when she was pregnant with me. So then I started to be educated about the history of what was really going on.
Well, your dad broke me down. Your dad, Thomas Avila, I know you're gonna see this show one day. You broke me down when I met you. When I met him and we sat in that beautiful family room of yours in Boston, and he opened his heart to all of us, and he talked about a defining moment in his life when he knew he had to do better. He didn't like what he saw when he was looking at himself in the mirror, and that he wanted to do right for Jessica, Jessica, Jessica. He just said her name, and there was so much love, and the tears came for all of us that were in that room at that time. And again, it's just amazing what God can do and how he changed your ex-husband's heart and mind and life, thereby changing all of your lives, that you could be together and go on stages across this country and speak to anybody and everybody who wants to hear about healing and becoming survivors and not being victims anymore. So I think it's just a blessing how God is using you as a Pendergrass and you as Navilla and your dad, Thomas Avila, and his wife too,
Absolutely.
to tell your stories, to share your testimonies, and not be afraid to speak out so you can help other people.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So now, what do you want to happen next? What happens next? How many months do we have to wait before this documentary is out? Because we want everybody to see it. We also want people to buy it. We want them to see it, we want them to buy it, because we're going to use that money to further educate.
Well, we want to see it happen. We want to complete the documentary.
I keep saying it's finished. It's finished. What do you people talk about?
I think it's a great opportunity that is going to impact a lot of people. It's from an empowering perspective. You spoke about, being the darker person in your family. So I think the documentary speaks to that in colorism in families, especially people of color, being darker, being lighter. Joan's story touches upon that in terms of colorism, which is real. It's real.
Yes, it
People
is real.
don't want to speak about it, especially, within Black families and, families of color, but it is real. And then, she touches upon that in her documentary because ultimately colorism is what put her out of the home. Her mother had to pick between light and dark, and the light little girl had to be taken out of the home. It talks about incest, it talks about molestation. These are taboo things that people don't want to talk about, but they're also continuously, shamed for talking about it. And then you also spoke about, you know, families being hush-hush, because ultimately it disrupts families. It pitches families against one another, you know, uncle whoever or auntie whatever, because, you know, it happens, you know, gender, whatever, it doesn't matter, you know, females, males, it affects multiple people, you know, and so when a person or a child or an adult or a male or female has to say, you know, uncle whatever, or I was walking across the street and my friend, because the majority of the time it's somebody we know, it's not, you know, this stranger who's jumping out, it disrupts that circle, it disrupts that social circle, it disrupts that family. So then people typically choose sides. They don't come from that empowering perspective. So I think with Joan telling her story, it helps people from that empowering standpoint. It helps people identify and say, you know what, like, this happened to me. I can speak about it. I can tell my story, and I can feel like somebody's listening to me. Because most of the times people don't want to say something because they're feeling judged, or somebody doesn't believe them. So
There's
they
that
don't
too.
say anything. And especially if they say something to somebody in their family. So, you know, not only can it empower somebody from that perspective too, but at the end of the day too, you know, we hope that we can use it as a teaching tool. We can develop curriculums that she can go on speaking engagements and use it in communities, use it within organizations, eventually go into schools and teach kids, you know, these are the things that you need to look out for. These are the signs and the signals of how to, you know, talk about it. These are the signals and signs of how to, you know, what is a healthy relationship? What is, you know, those types of things. So
And healthy relationships, let's get real plain. Your dad is not supposed to be touching you in private places. Your uncle is not supposed to be touching you in private places. And other people who are coming into your home. The only person that's supposed to touch you in your private place is yourself when you're going to the bathroom to wipe yourself or something like that. Kids need to know
what is
that plain
consent?
English.
You know, educating people about what is consent, what is a clear yes and a no. You know, things like that. So
I want to say that my voice, I want to use my voice for my mother, my sister who was sexually abused, that I witnessed being being abused, and me being too little to go in and fight this man that was doing this to her. So my voice now is for her. It's for your grandmother, your grandfather, your sister, your brother. My voice, I'm going to use my voice to help others to have a voice. And I'm not going to be a victim. I don't want you to be a victim anymore. I'm a survivor. I want you to survive.
And
I don't want, what I want to see is a lot of us, because it happened in my family, where we protect the abuser to the core. Because when we go to family functions, we have to hug uncle and we have to hug and kiss because we need to keep this silent. Be silent no more. Because they are still taking our power. Take our power back. Take our strength back from them. Before they die, let them know that you will not be silent anymore, and they deserve to be exposed.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I am prayerful that this show that we've done today, for those who will watch it, those in Philadelphia, those outside of Philadelphia, around the world on YouTube or whatever, that you will be inspired and motivated and encouraged to do just that. Be silent no more, be a victim no more, become a survivor like Joan Pendergrass. That's what we want to see. And if you want to take advantage of the opportunity to support the wonderful documentary that is being done by Mr. Bob Lott and Teamwork Productions, and he has an international name which is escaping me at the moment. He'll get me later on. But Teamwork Productions, Bob Lott. Go to
www.indiegogo.com.
Spell it out, because I want them to know that they have it. You do
Bob, but I don't know it off the top of my head.
INDIEGOGO.com.
Yeah.
Yes.
Bam,
Good.
we got it. I'm going to say it again.
Victim no more.
INDIEGOGO.com. Victim no more.
Or
And
Joan
then you can.
Pendergrass Story.
The Joan Pendergrass Story, you can support this project that we are finishing up very, very soon. I'm so excited about it, and I'm honored to be a part of it. And it is a healing process for me too. And I want to shout out Lois Fernandez. She is now with our ancestors, Queen Mother Lois Fernandez, the founder of the Odunde Festival in Philadelphia. She used to host a program in Philadelphia called The Women Gather. And it was there that I was first able to open up in a circle of women and talk about domestic violence and what we went through in our family. And what I discovered was, oh my God, every woman in this circle has a similar story, either rape, incest, or domestic violence. And we've got to talk about it to begin the healing process. Before we run out of time, the Teddy and Joan Pendergrass Foundation.
Yes.
Can you quickly tell us about
Teddy
that?
and Joan Pendergrass Foundation is a quick spin from Teddy Pendergrass Alliance that I launched in 2015. So it's a foundation that helps people with spinal cord injury. And here in Philadelphia, we work with McGee Rehab Hospital. Our biggest donation goes to them because that's where Teddy went when he was paralyzed. And so we are committed to helping them and to help others. So I'm working closely with them, and we're also partnering up with Spalding Rehab in Boston. They have accepted our partnership. We're meeting with them on the 30th of this month, and we're going to be presenting help to spinal cord injuries.
And I would like to shout out New Balance also, because they were an integral part of your life. You've been with New Balance for like 30-some years now.
No, 41 years.
Woo!
Oh, they were my first real family. And I don't think the owner of the company and his wife really knows how much they have been a part of my life. The stability, Jim Davis and Ann Davis, they have inspired me, and I use their example. They were growing, and while they were this way, I was right under them, you know, and so I just looked up to them. And they gave me the opportunity without a college degree, and I did amazingly well with them.
And when you stick and stay, great things happen too. So congratulations for that. And we do want to thank New Balance for all of their work. And Bob Lottigan, hats off to him, Jackie Nichols, and to Sister Claire, and everybody, Walter Wimberly, and to our other Walter Gavin, everybody who's been a part of this outstanding project. Anybody's names I left out, it's because of the mind, not of the heart. I love you all so much. LaSalle TV, I'll never forget you. I'll never forget LaSalle University. I will never forget Tanya Ellis. Thank you for the opportunity, everybody. And whatever you do, wherever you go, always remember that life is fragile. Handle it with prayer. And take care. Bye-bye.